Hello, hello. I don't have James with me for this one, so I'm using a clamp which hopefully doesn't wiggle around too much. Just cleaning out my palette. How's everyone doing today? Hey Victor. So I'm going to be trying my best to multitask. It's not going to be too long a stream, but I have kind of a clamp holding my phone roughly in the right position, which makes it a little bit difficult for me to see the screen. Alright, we have a clean palette. And we're good to go. So what I have here is the texture palette that we've been talking about having in our set. You can see the big guy in the background. If anyone wants to see any of the figures from the previous streams or has any questions about them, just let me know and I'll do my best to answer any questions that you have. I thought I would show people kind of, I can both do something on the texture palette and show people kind of a fairly relevant skill, which is using Series D on flat surfaces to add interest and texture. All right. So if anyone has any questions at all about why I'm doing what I'm doing, the way I am, anything at all like that, please do let me know, and I'll do my best to kind of think up the relevant things to answer before you've got to them as well. So will the other streams that we've done be available in full length? Possibly not, because we're getting to grips with learning how the streaming stuff works, and I think because we went over an hour with them, that might have made a difference or something like that, but we're trying to work on something now. We do have, however, in the background a tech quiz, and so Matt may well have found a way to get them back. The quality wasn't too good on the audio in them, but there's some relevant content. However, we can answer any of the questions and we can repeat painting in the same way, because everything we do is kind of painted to do with like pre-highlighting and shading and the generic technique that we've adapted for use with Series D. So we will absolutely be showing the content from them. If not in its original sense, we'll be showing the same type of content again. How's the audio on this one? Is this okay, guys? I've literally got a phone just sat like 6 inches from my face. So we're getting all of our favourite colours out here. See me adding water to the paints that I'm dry brushing with. That's normal practice for me, especially with stippling. You're not looking for thick stuff. So I tend to prime my texture palettes and the palettes I work on black, and I like working from a darker background for a couple of reasons. On whatever surface it is that I'm mixing paint on. One of those is that when picking paints, and I actually got this from Tommy Sewell in a chat with him years ago, it's important to, depending which way you paint, if you're going to be working from a black primer, or if for any reasons there's going to be black involved in your painting of whatever model it is you have, whatever the model is in question, then you should you should be able to cover that black surface easily with what you pick. So for example here, I've used Xeris Purple to start with. Xeris Purple covers over black just amazingly well. Like I've found very few other purples that will cover it with the same kind of instant quality, like 1-2 layers max and you're done over a Chaos Black primer. And it's not a dull looking purple, it's still that kind of that lovely colour that which is the reason why we've used it in so many of our bases that we all love. So it's a great way to discover something. If you grab a paint and you pop it onto your black palette and it just will not cover, then maybe that's not the paint you should be using for the job in question. What's been the biggest surprise to using these brushes so far? Something you didn't design but have found a use for, if that makes sense. I did design them. I've had some I fully like from stage 1 designed them actually. I have however had some big surprises. Probably it's the stuff I'm doing now actually, the stippling. So where is the model in question? So I didn't realize that stuff like this was doable. I just hadn't thought of that application. Like the kind of swift covering of flat areas and adding like massive amounts of visual interest. You can see my little purple explosion I've had there, devastating. Might be getting some battle damage. But yeah, this type of thing has been a real, like, kind of a revelation to me actually, just that you can do stuff like that fast. Kind of, it's one of those things where I tried it out and then instantly I was like, my God, like, why have you? I've been base coating like that. I've been base coating similarly, but I just didn't realize that you could take that application and you could do something so swiftly and get kind of bonus levels of interest from it as well. Like the interest you get, like the visual texture from stippling, is what you can achieve is pretty mind-blowing, and that was a real surprise for me. So obviously this isn't a model, guys. Doesn't take a genius to work that out, but I'm just having a little play on this, and I want to see if I can kind of show you guys stuff that maybe you wouldn't expect would be like the bonuses of working with dry brushes, but on a flat area, because it's the flat area stuff that I found really interesting. Yeah, it's super attractive. I mean, it feels special, right? Like to be able to just take a kind of a blank canvas, which is, because that's intimidating, right? Like you start there, and especially if you don't let me use an airbrush, God knows how to do it. It's like a flat base coat by hand and all that stuff, and then maybe like, do you layer it? Do you try and fade it? It's quite intimidating, but you can whack down something incredibly fast, like super quick. I mean, we're doing it here. This is this type of thing. Like you can get beautiful levels of visual interest, and the subtlety as well. That's been a really big thing. So we've had some questions on the campaign about having, thank you so much, Bearded Miniatures. I hope you like them when they arrive. They are mind-blowing. We're so proud of them. We've had some questions about the flat area of this texture palette, saying that you need a texture palette to be completely covered, and why would you have any area of it that doesn't have texture on it? That area is for you to put your own texture on. I mean, you can see this thing here, this beautiful thing. This started off flat. So I originally thought these brushes were similar to makeup brushes, but if you're stippling them, I wouldn't say they're much stiffer, but they are dense. So this is, let me find a brush that's not going to cover me in paint showing this, but our fill is really dense. Like, so the bristles are super soft. Hopefully this will all show up. Let me see if I can get this to focus better. So they are lovely soft bristles, but the packing, how many bristles we've fitted in this little area is, that's part of the speciality, and part, like, that's where they get their resilience from, is just how many we've fitted into a small area. So we've used fine hair. It's not like boar hair or something like super duper dense. like as in the actual hairs themselves, but then we've packed a lot into a small area, and that's made quite a big difference. Right, so I don't really know what I'm heading for here, guys, but I'm sure it'll turn out at least somewhat acceptable. I'm not sure what colour I'll go over towards the side, but we'll find out at some point soon. I'm just looking to build up some texture, and then kind of devastatingly in the future, once I've had a play and made something I'm proud of, I'll just cover it in paint as I go along and do my day-to-day painting. These splodges here, you can see, like I could be spooching this onto the palette now. It's got a grain, it is wood, so it does have texture, and if I were to very lightly go over it, you see here, it's picking out some parts more than others. By the way, if anyone has asked questions and I've not answered them because I've missed them, just pop them in again, and I'll get to you and get everything sorted. Right, so I can show various things here because this is why the texture palette is so magic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some pre-highlighting. So I've gone to the lightest colour on our brush, and this helps both remove excess paint from the brush for cleaning, and it'll help the stages that we've got coming up next. So these little windows on the buildings, which work particularly well for this stuff, we're giving them a little bit of love now. The irony here is I can't actually use the texture palette fully for what I want to show you, because I'm trying to make something that looks pretty by the end of it. This is not my normal forte. I'm not particularly good at working on flat stuff. I'm not a classically talented artist at all. In fact, I'm not any type of talented artist at all. I'm just like a process artist, I guess you'd say. I do things in stages, and working in stages is kind of one of the big things that helped inform exactly how we came up with this product with the dampening pad and using texture palettes and stuff like that. Is to give people steps they can follow to achieve kind of consistent results and predictable results. Alright, jump back to purple again. So this, whatever it is I'm doing here with this skyline, you could absolutely be doing this with weathering. In fact, that's what's on the ATST here. It's just blotchy is not the right word. It's a bit smoother than that. It's kind of building up a patina. That's the right word. You're building up some visual interest in terms of texture. Once I've done a little bit more here, I'm going to jump to another model. I'm not sure which one I will choose, but we'll pick something interesting. I've been working on this guy. Cadian Shock, vehicles and armor. Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what. How about that? 100% dry brushing and stippling. Let me pick up a smaller brush for a second so I can point to things. So this here, this is like super duper careful. Kind of. Let me pick an actual dry brush because that would be intelligent. This is basically like buffing at this stage. It's so gentle. So areas like this, I can do a panel of this if you'd like to see me do that in a second. That's not a worry at all. So areas like this stippling, we've gone from dark to light, and we've gone from our purple. We've worked our way up. We've added actually the colour that I've been adding here, lemon yellow. You can order the brushes wherever you like in the world. They're on Kickstarter now. If you search for Artis Opus or Series D or dry brushes, they'll all come up, and our other brushes are available from artis-opus.com. We ship worldwide. So I've taken this colour here, I've added it in and faded it towards here, and then I've added a bit of white. Because we've stippled and we built up the texture beforehand, this, I'm not sure how, you can kind of see that there, my light's quite bright. It's picking up the brighter colours more, but you then end up with a very, very fine texture from the dry brushing, because it's not from a primer. This is smooth, that's only been primed. This has been stippled, so it is, we'd probably say smooth, strictly, like generally speaking, but strictly speaking, it has a tiny amount of texture, and carefully do this type of motion, and it will pick it up, and that's how you get a lovely fade just for dry brushing. Like this is all this stuff is just dry brush work. I'm going to do put a bit more colour on this palette, and then I'll do a bit of work on that Dreadnought if you'd like to see. Cadian. See what I mean about picking colours that will cover over anything? Like it really informs your pick. Like you don't always want colours that will cover instantly, but they will in a lot of situations. They'll just make your life a little bit easier. No worries. What's even the purple, Harry? What do you mean, sorry? Do you mean was even the purple dry brushed? The comments don't come through in quite in real time, guys, so if you're asking something as I'm saying it, I'll see it in like 30 seconds or a minute after you've asked. Oh yeah, 100% dry brushed. All of it is dry brushed. The entire thing. I primed it black, and then everything is done from that. I'll paint a bit of it for you now. It's not a worry. Let me just fade to I'm going to fade to kind of a greeny over one side of this, and then I'll show you exactly what I mean in real time. Yeah, my pleasure, mate. That's what we're here for. We're here to answer questions. We're very well aware that, oh, not very aware, that white was not dried. We're very well aware that there's quite a bit of, I guess you call it confusion, from our perspective at least, surrounding dry brushing. Like, I think there's a lot more to it than people realise, and I mean, it's a shame, mostly, because there's an amazing, beautiful technique out there. And in some situations, oh, you've seen the Devilfish by Bohan. It is absolutely nuts. He's a talented man, and very nice. Yeah, there's a lot of like, I don't know where it's come from really. I think it's because it was always that technique that people did first, or they did to get things done really, really fast. But something can be done fast, and it can be really special as well. So yeah. How-to videos are 100% going to be available. What I would love you to do is, if you put in Artis Opus on YouTube, sorry, I'll just take a drink, getting a bit croaky. Yeah, if you put in Artis Opus on YouTube, head over there and subscribe, then when we put out stuff in the future, you'll be notified, and you'll be able to get all that juicy content. And there will certainly be a lot of that juicy content, because we're aware that we're telling people perhaps new information, or quite quite a different take on a technique from what they're used to. So the education is really important. Okay, so because I'm painting with transparent paints now, guys, these tend to not be as opaque as others. It's nice for some reasons and less helpful for other reasons. You just have slightly worse coverage. It's kind of unavoidable, really. Right, so let's show you some brush cleaning live in action here. Could you go through the dampening? The dampening stages are just as I paint, Simon. So the process, mate, is I have a little pad here. So it's wet in the middle. It's not dipped in the middle. I'm not sure quite how it looks on camera, but there you go. Piece of foam. So this is a sterile foam. And throughout the process, I will go back to this to add moisture to my brush, especially on a warm English sunny day like we've had. That means that I don't go back to the palette. I'm not going back for more paint, I'm going back for more moisture and more lubrication to help the paint that's on there leave the brush more readily. So that means that exactly as I'm doing now, I'll move this out of the way for a second, I can remove paint from the brush, and rather than just piling more on, I'm taking more off. So that is a couple of things. The paint that comes off is going to be smooth and beautiful because it's not grainy, it's not dry, even though it's called dry brushing. That's a bit of a misdemeanor, really. So it'll make it smoother, but also you end up cleaning your brush as you go. I mean, even using, I've used brutal paints here. I've been speaking about picking paints that cover really well, and some of the paints that cover really well or do have particularly vibrant colours, like your Xeris purples, your Hold Your Blues, which is down here in the palette, that type of stuff. It just helps make sure that you're not ploughing more and more paint onto your bristles. So I'm kind of showing you all right, Cadian, it's a pleasure, mate. We'll see you there, and hopefully we'll see you on the campaign as well. So I don't often saturate my dry brushes with liquid. If I do, I make sure I clean them very carefully afterwards, but generally speaking, I clean them kind of almost on the model. That Hold Your Blue though, it just goes on forever. Alright, so done a little bit of cleaning, and what I'll do, this will show use of the dampening pad really nicely as well, is I'll now show you a little bit of work on the Dreadnought. We'll jump back to this brush now, because one of the things that we're saying a lot on the campaign is that cleaning your brush and dry brushing with your brush are pretty much the same things. Oh, thank you, Simon. So I'm going to do, which section? I'll tell you what, I'm going to show you some just general dry brushing on hair, and with the big brush, and then we'll step to a shoulder and we'll show you some fancy dry brushing. So if you want to use dry brushing as in just picking out things that stick out, so no stippling, which is closer to traditional dry brushing. That's not derogatory. I love this type of dry brushing. It is amazing. Then this is a pretty much perfect way to do it. And if we grab our texture palette, I can start showing the reason for it. So on these squares here, you can see it, like, see even picking out the wood grain here. See that there? I'm not sure if that's showing up perfectly on camera, but just about picking out the wood grain. We know we've not oversaturated our brush. Take a bit here. Our brush is not dry. It's not gone on a really dry brush, especially shortly after cleaning. Right, that's picking out edges nicely. Here we go. So we're looking for kind of a heavy pre-shading at this stage. This is going to affect whatever paint goes down on top of it, and where it is lighter and closer to white, the colors that go over the top of that are going to be lighter, and where it's darker, they're going to be darker. If I put this on a completely black section, you'll see the type of speed that we can expect to work out with this stuff. You can stipple, absolutely. It'll do a fine job. There, that's how it'll go picking up textures. Now something I want to pick up on. Oh, I'm getting questions. Yeah, Cyclops. They're way softer. So we're on the same brush here. Focusing. Okay, so we're on the same brush here. You can see the colors we've used like 10 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago. They're pretty dark. In the middle though, we've started knocking them off. And we're knocking them off by using the brush, and because we've not just been ploughing, kind of ploughing away and adding more and more paint. Thank you very much, Wayne. So what I want to draw your attention to here, guys, because it's kind of educational, this bit here. Now, this has gone on straight on top of primer, and I've dry brushed, which is a physical technique. Primer is quite smooth. As far as surfaces to paint on go, it's great. It is a primer. All of them out there are good. This doesn't mean it's a bad primer or anything. It's Chaos Black that I love, but it's a smoother surface than is ideal for dry brushing. And that means we've actually knocked off some of our kind of stipply first stage there because it's too smooth. It's not got, we call it the tooth or the bite. It's not got the bite that we want as a surface for dry brushing on. So when we do this shoulder pad here, we're going to make sure that we build up some proper actual paint with the stippling, and then our dry brushing will have something to stick to and not get knocked off. I'm trying to see if there's any other areas on this model to demonstrate it. You might have it a little bit on these edges here. You see tiny little black sections. If you are having issues with it, one thing you can do, especially if you've got an airbrush, it's easier, but you don't have to have one, you can use it from a spray can, is you just pop down a layer of varnish. Absolutely fine to varnish at any stage of model painting. It's all good, you can go it whenever. Right, we're going to paint this bit here. What I'm going to show you is a little bit of pre-shading. It is so warm in the UK, guys. Like, I'm not used to this. So I'm not sure if you can see here, but I'm just taking a little dip in my water pot, and then I'm putting one drop on the moisture palette, the dampening pad, whatever you want to call it. Pressing it there with my finger. That's important because I want to see how much is on there. I don't want my finger to come away soaked. So that is actually a little bit too wet. So I'll carry on pressing it in until it's dispersed a little more. And then we want just like I'll take a dry finger. We want just like a general, there you go, a little bit of moistening. So this is to make sure that our brush starts off anything but dry, because that's not helpful for anyone. I'm going to go straight in with this white. And I'm going to start building up. Now this is going to be, as you can see, pretty harsh. We're going over this, so that doesn't matter. Now notice here, guys, I'm getting a nice crisp edge here. I'm going at it from this angle. I'm not going at it down the line, because that'll end up with us going over. If you go at this angle, then it is pretty much impossible for me to overshoot that edge. As we use up more and more paint from the brush, it's going to get more and more gentle. And I'm just going to, you'll be able to see kind of the general shape I'm going for here. So we can go straight, we're not at angle anymore because we're just on a flat surface. We don't have anything to worry about with overspill or whatever phrase you want to use. Get more careful as I go towards the edges. Okay, let's build up a little bit of texture there. Back to the dampening pad, which I've put out of shot. I'm going to pop in there a little bit more. That'll help the paint leave the brush nicely. Okay, there we go. So we've just put down kind of a, take a tad more. I want it really white on the edges. There we go, carefully because we don't want overspill here. We want to keep those sharp edges and contrasts. And I'm going to fade this a bit. Okay, so that's not crazy smooth, but that's what's going to make a difference to the colors we're putting down here. I'm going to add a tiny bit of a darker color. I've got this blue in the palette, so why not? I'm just going to use that to soften this fade a little bit. Okay, so we have a brush with some color on it. We want to remove some of that. Back to the dampening pad, and we're just going to take it off on our palette. Test it on a hand, see how we're doing there. Hopefully this isn't shaking the camera or anything. Looking pretty good. So we're ready to go in with our strong colors. Right, Xeris purple. Mix it with a little bit of blue. The gun's kind of in the way here, but we're going to work around it. Hair came off the brush, so that's normal, just wipe it off. We've got a lovely organic technique, we don't have to worry about things like that. It's got a little bit of blue there in the background. That's the only blue that we want on the model, or on this section of the model rather. We want it in that bottom right hand corner. Remove some of that paint. We don't want that blue punching through too much, and it is a very punchy blue. So there's not too much colour coming off that brush. Those bristles have kind of really softened out in terms of the colour on them. You can see the direction we've used the brush from there, because we've cleaned it more on that side than we have on that side. So there we go. Clean all over now. As far as paint coming off the next step goes, a bit more purple. Fade it into that blue. I'm going to fade it into that top left hand corner as well. Don't have to be as careful as we were with the white, but I'm still going to kind of aim off the model at angle. Build up that texture. So the colour that we added was the one that we won't stop going on about, lemon yellow, because it's wicked. Guys, do please feel free to ask any questions painting related while we're going. Doesn't even have to be paint related. Ask any questions within reason. Now, because we've got this white underneath, we want to make sure we are using opaque paint. We want that white informing the colours go over it. We do not want it to be absolutely everything that's going on this model. Oh, we were impatient there. Haven't let something dry. Let's go in there and fix that with some more purple. Organic techniques, guys. Do a bit of finger painting if you want. It's absolutely fine. For precise airbrush. Oh yeah, 100% Cyclops, exactly the same thing, mate. It's a lot of what we're doing here is really, if people are into their airbrushing, is going to make them think of airbrush tutorials or their own airbrush painting. It all goes in the same pot, like putting highlights in the right sections. That like you can do that with any type of paintbrush. Putting down a lighter color so that the colors that go over the top look darker. Like you can do that with any type of paintbrush. bearing in mind like light sources and things like that. Any type of paintbrush, it's not stuff. I'm just going to clean my brush here, guys, on the model, because why not? It's not like I don't know, soft blends are only to do with dry brushing or something like that. It's just, that's painting. You can do whatever you like, wherever you like, however you like. Oh mate, Bob, I've literally got a harpy like on the sofa behind me because the wings are going to look wicked. So you won't have to wait long at all. And trust me, the results on Tyranids are nuts. They're absolutely crazy. Probably Tyranids and Nurgle are probably the most like extreme examples of perfect armies for dry brushing with these brushes, I'd say. So we're absolutely going to be making the most of that. So you can see I'm just removing the paint from the brush on the model. I'm doing that by going back, adding moisture, taking off some of the moisture on my hand, and then just going to sections of our model. And I don't have to worry about what this is doing particularly. I'm just doing like a generic dry. Oh, messing it up by putting a hair on it. Just doing a generic dry brush here. And by the end of this, our deep purple brush is going to be like a soft one. Oh man, metallics as well are really good. I want to paint up like one of the Necron Croissant vehicles, the Doom Scythes. I think they'd look really, really good. Some of that, and then probably some washing afterwards, maybe even experimentation with stippling washes on, I think could be really interesting. Hopefully we're a bit drier now here, guys, and then we can move on with that section. What I will do is I'll spend a little bit of time kind of playing around on one of these legs while we do wait for things to dry. It's important to play with these. It's important to play with painting in general. Like I think people get too tied up with not experimenting. Yeah, me too. You can stipple anything, and in fact, some of the work we did on, let's bring over the big guy while this dries. Actually, it's as good a time as any. Some of the work we did on this guy, we added in glaze medium from Vallejo, stippling to let our pre-highlighting punch through. So what you're doing there is you're effectively turning your paint into a wash. You're turning your paint into something that is not opaque. You're building it up with that kind of added transparency, and that's what's allowed us to take these colors right from here, fade them all the way up above, and benefit from the black underneath here and the white underneath here. It's really, really, really helpful. The fluorescent paints have got it in naturally. They're just not very opaque paints, but if you want to work with a really deep color that covers very well, hold your blue, like there is no reason not to add in. You can add in weird stuff. You can add in paint thinner to your stippling mixes. You can add in glaze medium, matte medium. You can add in metallic medium. I've never tried that, but there's no reason why not to at all. Do whatever you like. Oh yeah, I've seen that Knight shoulder pad. Most things he does are fantastic and kind of awe-inspiring in their own way. He is just incredibly talented as Bohan. Right, while we're here, let's take a little bit of blue, and I want to make this corner a little bit darker. Not quite that dark. Okay. So let's remove as much of this blue as we can, most of which is going to end up on my fingers. And let's crack on with our purple. So the reason we had issues here, guys, is because I was being impatient and didn't let the middle section dry. So you got to see a cock up live on stream. I think it's important to show things like that though, like I do not spend all of my time painting getting things right first time. Far from it. I experiment quite a lot. I push myself and try and do things in the knowledge that I probably will cock up, and then sometimes I learn something from it. No need for Pornhub for a while. I'll take it. Okay, this is starting to get where I wanted it to get now. If I was doing that Dreadnought Imperial Fist, what yellows would I recommend? That is a really good question. I don't use yellow too much actually, but when I'm working with yellows, if I want to get something that's got some real interest in the depths, I'd work from a really warm brown, and I'd probably start from something like this, Doom Ball, and then we've got one here that I quite like. So Soul Yellow is really good. And then I'd take something like a soft tone or a mid brown. That's a wash, and I'd use that in the recesses to add depth. And then whatever yellow you're going up to, either go up. I wouldn't go up to right to white. I'd add bone or something, or maybe even ice yellow from Vallejo. So kind of these three here, I reckon you could get something pretty nice. There's a load of ways you could go there. You could have a bit of orange in the base. Purple and yellow looks wicked together. You could shade your bottom corners from purple. You could even start with a model prime from purple, or stipple prime from purple. I could show you that on a section actually, because now I've said that, I've kind of got really excited at the idea of doing it myself. I'm just gonna have to plug in my phone so it doesn't die, guys. Sorry for the wobbles. I'm working with wires in front of my face, so if I get caught on it and pull everything over, you'll know what happened. All right, so much brighter in this corner. We're going to be working backwards and forwards on this, guys. You don't just work one way with dry brushing, or you don't have to just work one way with dry brushing. You build up, and then you can go up to the brightest, down to the darkest, up to the brightest, down to the darkest. You can do what I'm about to do here, which is wet our brush a little, grab some purple, take a lot of that purple off, and then go in and fade your midtone. It's a far more forgiving technique than people realise, and part of the reason for that is you're not working with opaque colours. Not really, because you're not putting down big flat blobs. Going back to the moisture palette, I'm looking for some really soft fades here. Okay, so you can see we've got some little blotches here. These are things we're trying to smooth out, but we are kind of getting towards where we want to be now. So now we've built up that texture with the stippling. We've got something that I was talking about, having something that your paint can bite onto. We've got something that we can bite onto now. So that allows us to start doing traditional dry brushing, where we're picking out the texture that we've put on. So grab a little bit more purple. I much prefer dropper bottles. But we're going to work backwards and forwards. You do a little bit of stippling, a little bit of dry brushing. We'll go backwards and forwards until we're happy with what it is that we've got left. Citadels are all fine. Ironically, it takes quite a bit of getting used to using Citadel dry paints with lovely proper sexy dry brushes, but all of them work well. I love it. We've been using Doomball Brown quite a lot, and we've been using Xeris Purple as our base coat for pretty much everything we've done. Like, without any exaggeration, it's been on pretty much every single model. They're great. I love the Citadel paints. They're metallics. I don't use as much, apart from Retributor Armor, which is the best gold ever in the world. I'd decant any of their paints into dropper bottles, really. The main reason for not having these is we've picked these ones up because we know they're going to be good for demos, and I just haven't got around to it. But yeah, I do prefer it. I prefer mixing and shaking and the consistency that comes out once you've shaken. I mean, you can shake these, but you can shake with your finger over the end and then just splodge it out, and I'm lazy and I don't want to open a cap up. Guys, I just had a live request. I don't even know how that works, but once someone's told me, in the future I will definitely take live requests. Okay, so we've built up a little bit here. We're going to start the softly dry brushing. So this is going to be focusing more on the edges of the model than we were before. Wicked Cyclops, absolute pleasure, mate. Hope to see you in the future in lives, and thank you so much for your support. Alright, here we go. So guys, we are hitting some edges now, and we're going to hit them sharp and crisp. Not sure if that's showing up there. This is the magic of dry brushing. This is where you just save time by the bucket load. That is a proper lovely precise edge highlight, and we got it in like a second. There you go, guys. So that is kind of done live on stream. The light I've got, it picks out colors and makes them look a little bit more harsh. So the kind of the bad waves we've got aren't as noticeable in real life. But while they're there, I'll show you a little bit of how to involve Series D with non-dry brushing techniques. So you're going to grab a bit of Xeris Purple. Am I using it as size 1? Just Series S. Could use bigger than this. I've just got, this is what I've got to hand. And I'm going to glaze back some colour. That's what we've been doing here. We could take a more intense version if we wanted. Like we could take a like an ink tense, like a violet or something like that. In fact, why not? Violet. We've got it out because we've used it in the recesses on Big Papa. These are strong colours. I'll be diluting this a lot. We'll be able to see it here. Woo! So pushing that in, pushing that into our recesses. Oh, I'm nudging my cable with a brush. So if we're looking, we're going to have to work fast here, otherwise we'll get tidal marks. If we're looking to maintain saturation though, this is a brilliant way to do it. I'm going to unplug my charger in a second, guys. Got the end of my brush hitting my phone cable. Push in towards the recesses. See these areas where we've got the texture the most from dry brushing up to the brightest colours. They are really benefiting from this a lot. You just get instant depth pretty much. Also, they dry way faster going over a surface like this. If I get my airbrush, hopefully this doesn't deafen you. But if I just do let me know if that's way too noisy. Hey there, Nick. Pretty much dry there, and that's because you've got more texture. You've got more bite to the paint in these areas. You can get a stronger one now. So we're always pushing towards the darkest areas. Take it down the panel line, why not? Can even remove it from these top areas here. Dry brushing on camera is so much easier than traditional painting on camera. I hadn't realised how much of a difference it makes. So here, guys, I'm learning from, should have practiced what I preach, but because we didn't build up as much texture here in this corner, it's really not biting onto the washes as well as it is in the top left corner. So it's not behaving as well. It's just, I'm not sure if it's showing up as well on camera, but you see here that light reflection there is really smooth. Here it's more faded. It's refracting in all different directions. So that bit where it's too smooth, it's just going to make our jobs harder. We should have stippled more there, and we should have stippled less. Like we have there. So we're getting less well-behaved paint there because we should have stippled more. So once this is dry, I'll do a little bit more dry brushing on it, and then we'll probably call the stream there. Any more questions for me while I'm on at all, guys, about texture palettes, anything whatsoever, do let me know. I'm just going to set the model down in front of a fan behind me to help it dry. Hopefully not melt his arm. Alright, so this is one of our texture palettes. Playing it while we're waiting for things to dry. I'm just going to do a little bit of stippling to pre-highlight these corners. I think people always expect techniques that look gentle to be done gently and techniques that look harsh to be done harsh, and there's no real, I mean, sometimes, yeah, you will find that, but a lot of people when they see me work, they comment how I don't look like I'm working very precisely when I dry brush, and that's because it's all about having the right amount of paint on the brush and the procedure. It says you have to prime the texture palette. Yeah, any prime spray, absolutely fine, mate. I'd actually go for a few layers of primer as well. So it's not like sometimes with minis, to preserve detail, you just want to do maybe like a thin, almost like a dusting, a powdering of primer from the top or something like that. Particularly if you're doing really fancy painting. I primed one earlier, which I will show you in true blue pizza style. In case I got asked this question, this one's been primed. I primed that like 2 or 3 times. Wood is absorbent as well, so it's been sprayed 2 or 3 times, and that's perfect. I've let it dry between, but that is pretty much perfect. And then that will give you still, even though it's been primed a few times, you still keep that kind of that texture there from the engraving process, as you can see, which we're looking to pick up on. So it doesn't ruin it or stop it from doing what it's meant to do at all. The detail on these really is great. It's phenomenal. It's absolutely perfect. Hey there, James. All right, so let's jump back to the Dread. Here we go. So we're going to be doing some softly, super gentle, kind of final finish dry brushing on this guy. Maybe a little bit more stippling as well, but we're looking to pick out these textures here. So we are back to the lemon yellow, and we're going to be picking out edges with it. Not sure how well it's showing the really gentle edge work on camera, but we're working very softly here. The nice thing about this is you don't have to swap brush. Like we're doing our edge highlight, and we're doing it with the same brush that we're doing like stippling and dry brushing. It's all the same process. Going to jump to white, just a tiny bit in our mix. Test it on my finger first. There we go. Super crisp edges. Looking great, and we might even be able to get a little bit of detail on these edges, even though they're not protruding ones. I'll to pick them up too. And these bottom edges, no reason not to pick them out as well. Doing a kind of rolling motion to exaggerate. And while I've got such a light colour on the brush, I'll show what you can get with them. If you just wanted to pick out these corners here, absolute doddle is what it's made for. There you go. So I'll make sure this brush is nice and clean by doing some work on the rest of the model, picking out the edges and stuff. But if anyone's got any final questions before I shoot off, do let me know. If any of you haven't checked out the campaign or are interested in what you've seen, the campaign can be found on Kickstarter. If you search for Series D or Drybrushing or Artist Opus, or just follow the link in our profile on Instagram, that'll sort you out. As far as other content goes, we've got some more coming. We've got some of our previous live streams that have been saved by Matt Avis, who is our resident tech wizard and general all-round hero and nice guy. We've got the ATST that people have been really enjoying looking at. We've got the work that was done on that live on camera. There is a video on that on YouTube. Please go there and subscribe. And if that is it, I'm going to wish you all a good night and pop off. All right then, well, thank you very much, guys. We've got 5 seconds remaining until we've been on for an hour, so I'm going to end it. Thank you.